Senate Democrats just accused Trump of running a pay to play corruption scheme with tariffs. CEOs are literally giving him gold bars, then getting special treatment. Meanwhile, Trump's calling to federalize elections in 15 states, and Republicans won't even show up to hear testimony from families of Americans killed by federal agents. This is Republican corruption and authoritarianism on full display. Let's break it down. If you're new here, I'm Jordan Vale, and we're building a community of people who refuse to stand by while democracy is under attack. We need voices like yours in this fight, so hit that subscribe button. The breaking news from this morning: two senior Democratic senators just dropped a bombshell. According to reporting published Wednesday morning, February 4th, Senators Ron Wyden and Chris Van Hollen released a letter accusing the Trump administration of creating a closed-door tariff exclusion process that has opened the door to corruption and economic harm. Wyden is the ranking member of the Senate Finance Committee. Van Hollen sits on the Senate Appropriations Committee and is the ranking member of its Commerce Subcommittee. They sent the letter to U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. They're demanding answers by March 4th. And here's the pattern they're calling out. CEOs who personally court Trump get tariff relief. Small businesses without Washington connections get destroyed. The perfect example? Swiss business executives. On November 4th, 2025, Swiss business executives met Trump in the Oval Office, and they brought gifts. From Marwan Shakarchi, CEO of MKS PAMP Precious Metals Company, a gold bar engraved with 45 and 47 for Trump's presidential terms. From Jean-Frédéric Dufour, CEO of Rolex, a gold-plated Rolex desk clock. The gold bar, worth approximately $130,000. It's a 1-kilogram bar. The Rolex clock, estimated up to $25,000. 10 days later, the U.S. and Switzerland announced a framework deal slashing tariffs from 39% to 15%. Now, Trump's claim is that he accepted these gifts on behalf of the presidential library, which makes them legal, according to White House officials. But Swiss Green Party lawmakers requested a criminal investigation for possible bribery. They called it gold bar diplomacy and dubious methods and golden handouts. And Richard Painter, the former Bush White House ethics lawyer, said the gifts and tariff cut gives the appearance of a bribe. That's a Republican ethics lawyer saying this looks like a bribe. But it's not just the Swiss. There's also Tim Cook. In August 2025, Apple CEO Tim Cook gave Trump an engraved glass disc with a 24-karat gold base to commemorate the company's new $100 billion U.S. investment to avoid tariffs. The result? Smartphones were among the imports the Trump administration added to the April list of goods exempt from tariffs. Tim Cook personally courted Trump over the past year, and Apple products escaped the worst of Trump's tariffs. So if you're a billionaire CEO who can afford to give Trump gold bars and gold-plated clocks, you get tariff relief. But if you're a small business, according to the letter from Wyden and Van Hollen, the tariff exemption process has lacked transparency and procedural fairness for American stakeholders, especially small businesses and family farms. The letter asks how the administration will engage with companies that lack a presence in Washington, D.C., or an existing relationship with your agencies. Translation: if you can't afford to wine and dine the president with gold bars, you're getting crushed by tariffs. This is textbook corruption. Pay to play, kiss the ring with expensive gifts, get special treatment from the government. And Wyden and Van Hollen are demanding answers by March 4th. But here's what makes this even more important. The senators wrote that the process has lacked transparency and procedural fairness for American stakeholders. They're asking specific questions about how companies without DC connections are supposed to compete. Because if you're a family farm getting crushed by retaliatory tariffs from other countries, you can't just fly to the White House with a gold bar. You can't afford a lobbyist. You don't have a personal relationship with Trump. And according to the letter, that's exactly the problem. Big companies with access to Trump get relief. Everyone else gets destroyed. The senators are demanding to know, how will you engage with companies that lack a presence in Washington or an existing relationship with federal agencies? What criteria are you using to grant exemptions? Who's making these decisions? These aren't rhetorical questions. They want answers by March 4th. So Trump's taking bribes from billionaires, but that's not the only way he's abusing power. Because on Monday, Trump told podcaster Dan Bongino that Republicans should take over voting and nationalize elections in 15 states. Here are Trump's exact words. He said, the Republicans should say, we want to take over. We should take over the voting in at least many 15 places. He also said, I don't know why the federal government doesn't do elections anyway. The federal government should get involved. Trump wants Republicans to take over voting. He wants to nationalize elections. He wants the federal government to run elections. And he didn't specify which 15 states.
The Republicans should say, we want to take over. We should take over the voting in at least 15 places. The Republicans ought to nationalize the voting. And we have states that are so crooked, and they're counting votes. We have states that I won that show I didn't win. Now, you're going to see something in Georgia where they were able to get, with a court order, the ballots. You're going to see some interesting things come out. But, like the 2020 election, I won that election by so much. Everybody does it.
Now, here's the problem. The Constitution gives states the authority to run elections. Article 1 of the Constitution is clear about this. The president has no power to nationalize elections. Only state legislatures and Congress have authority to regulate elections. And just last week, a federal judge blocked portions of Trump's executive order on elections. U.S. District Judge Colleen Kollar-Kotelly wrote, the framers of our Constitution recognized that power over election rules could be abused, either to destroy the national government or to disempower the people from acting as a check on their elected representatives. Colorado's Secretary of State, Jenna Griswold, said, there is one small problem. The Constitution prevents federalizing elections. But Trump doesn't care about the Constitution. And on Tuesday, the White House tried to walk it back. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt claims Trump was referring to the SAVE Act, which would require proof of citizenship to register to vote. But that's not what Trump said. He said take over voting. He said nationalize elections. Those words are clear. And when White House spokesperson Abigail Jackson was asked for details on how and where Trump would want to nationalize elections, she did not offer specifics. Even some Republicans are pushing back. Senate Majority Leader John Thune said he does not favor federalizing elections. He said, I'm a big believer in decentralized and distributing power, and I think it's harder to hack 50 election systems than it is to hack one. That's the Republican Senate Majority Leader saying this is a bad idea. And Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer called Trump out directly. He said, just a few hours ago, Donald Trump said he wants to nationalize elections around the country. You think he believes in democracy? No, Chuck, he doesn't. But Trump doesn't care. He also told Bongino, we have states that are so crooked and they're counting votes. We have states that I won that show I didn't win. What does that even mean? He's already making excuses for future election losses. And this connects directly to what happened in Georgia last week. The FBI raided the Fulton County Elections Office and seized 2020 voting records. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard was present at the raid. She acknowledged facilitating a phone call between FBI agents and Trump after the search. Trump told Bongino, now you're going to see something in Georgia, where they were able to get with a court order the ballots. You're going to see some interesting things come out. Except there's no evidence of widespread fraud in the 2020 election. Dozens of lawsuits were dismissed. Bill Barr, Trump's own attorney general, said the DOJ found no evidence of widespread fraud. But Trump is still trying to overturn 2020, and now he wants the power to nationalize elections so he can control future results. This is authoritarian overreach, a president calling for his party to seize control of the electoral process. Corruption, authoritarianism, and when Americans are killed by federal agents, Republicans won't even listen to their families.
The deep distress our family feels because of Nay's loss is in such a violent and unnecessary way is complicated by feelings of disbelief, distress, and desperation for change. In the last few weeks, our family took some consolation, thinking that perhaps Nay's death would bring about change in our country, and it has not.
Yesterday, Tuesday, February 3rd, there was a public forum on Capitol Hill. It was organized by Senator Richard Blumenthal, the ranking member of the Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations, and Representative Robert Garcia, the ranking member of the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. The purpose was to inquire into tactics and use of force by Department of Homeland Security agents. And not a single Republican member of Congress showed up. 0 Republicans. But Democrats showed up. Senators Amy Klobuchar, Elizabeth Warren, Dick Durbin, Adam Schiff, Tina Smith, Alex Padilla, John Hickenlooper, and Tammy Duckworth, Representative Rashida Tlaib, Melanie Stansberry, Ro Khanna, Wesley Bell, Greg Casar, Jasmine Crockett, Summer Lee, and others. They showed up to hear testimony from the brothers of Renee Nicole Good. Renee Good was a 37-year-old Minneapolis woman, a mother of 3, including a 6-year-old. She was shot and killed by ICE agent Jonathan Ross on January 7th. Her brothers, Luke Ganger and Brent Ganger, came to Capitol Hill to testify. Luke Ganger said, "The deep distress our family feels because of Renee's loss in such a violent and unnecessary way is complicated by feelings of disbelief, distress, and desperation for change." He also said, "The completely surreal scenes taking place on the streets of Minneapolis are beyond explanation." This is not just a bad day or a rough week or isolated incidents. These encounters with federal agents are changing the community and changing many lives, including ours, forever. Brent Ganger read portions of the eulogy he gave at his sister's funeral. They also heard from Marimar Martinez, a woman who was shot 5 times by Customs and Border Protection agents in Chicago, and Aliyah Rahman, a woman with autism who was violently detained by agents in Minneapolis while trying to go to the doctor. These families came to tell their stories, to demand accountability, to ask why federal agents killed their loved ones, and not one Republican showed up to listen. Senator Blumenthal called the hearing extraordinary and unprecedented. He said, "With us in spirit are also Renee Nicole Good and Alex Preddy. In spirit, they should be here in person, but they were murdered. They were murdered by their own government. They were killed in cold blood." That's the language Blumenthal used. Murdered by their own government. Blumenthal also called for a complete overhaul of DHS, body cams for each ICE agent, and independent investigations into every use of force. Because this isn't just about Renee Good. It's about Alex Preddy, the 37-year-old nurse killed on January 24th. It's about Marimar Martinez, shot 5 times. It's about Aliyah Rahman, a woman with autism violently detained while trying to see a doctor. These are Americans, and their government killed them or brutalized them, and Republicans couldn't be bothered to show up. That's the GOP's idea of accountability. Pretend it didn't happen. Don't listen to the families. Don't ask questions. Just defend whatever Trump wants to do. Here's how these 3 stories connect, because they're all part of the same pattern. Trump is taking gold bars from billionaire CEOs, then giving them special tariff treatment while small businesses get crushed. That's corruption. Trump is calling to nationalize elections in 15 states and have Republicans take over voting. That's authoritarianism. And when families whose loved ones were killed by federal agents come to testify, Republicans refuse to show up. That's zero accountability. This is today's Republican Party: corruption, power grabs, and complete refusal to face consequences. But Democrats are fighting back. Wyden and Van Hollen are demanding answers about the tariff scheme. Blumenthal and Garcia organized a hearing to give victims' families a voice. Democratic senators and representatives showed up to listen. The Constitution still matters. Federal judges are blocking Trump's illegal orders. The lines are being drawn. What do you think? Does the gold bar bribery surprise you? Should Trump be allowed to nationalize elections? And what does it say about Republicans that not one of them showed up to hear from Renee Good's brothers? Share this video. People need to know that Trump is accepting gold bars from CEOs who then get tariff breaks. They need to understand he's calling to federalize elections in 15 states. And they need to see that when victims' families testify, Republicans won't even listen. We're building something here. A community that sees corruption for what it is, understands when democracy is under threat, and refuses to look away when people are killed by their own government. Because if we don't hold them accountable, no one will.
Thanks for spending a few minutes digging into this with me. If you want more grounded, progressive commentary without the outrage bait, subscribe and stick around. Every time you watch, share, and engage, it helps build a community that believes democracy is worth understanding and defending. I'll see you in the next video.